16-year-old wrestler overcomes a man nobody else.
Just hours after this disturbing kidnap attempt unfolded in Florida.
When kidnapped, the first 24 hours are crucial. I'm sure you already heard that. If you survive the first 24 hours, your chances of making it alive out of your situation get way higher. But what if your kidnapper doesn't even get a chance to keep you abducted for 24 hours? Well, here are 10 times when real kidnappers messed with the wrong people and got themselves either arrested or dead. Number 1. Mike Pieska's daughter. On March 23rd of 2015, a shocking kidnapping attempt took place at Skyline Elementary in California. That day, the 7-year-old daughter of Mike Pieska was playing with her friends behind the school. She headed to an after-school enrichment program when a 22-year-old man approached her. He was holding a roll of duct tape and tried to wrap the tape around the girl's head and carry her off. Luckily, the girl knew what to do in these situations. As the kidnapper got his hands on the girl, she started screaming and was able to get away. The guy then fled the scene, and the girl did the right thing because she made everyone know she's a victim. Staff members and parents witnessed everything and were able to give officials a description of the man. On April 1st, the man was identified as Jack Henry Doche, son of a well-known local businessman, and arrested. Doche lived with his parents, but his brother lived near the Skyline Elementary School where this kidnapping attempt took place. The school first sent an email out to parents letting them know about the incident and thanking the student and adults for their quick action. And a few days later, school held a meeting with concerned parents to discuss details of the incident and talk about ways to teach children what to do in a similar stranger danger situation. 2 years later, Jack was sentenced to 10 years and 4 months in state prison and ordered to register as a sex offender for life. Number 2. Bethany Arsenault. Bethany Arsenault was on her way to pick up her child from her ex-husband on November 6, 2013. But instead of getting her child, she got kidnapped. Upon meeting her ex-boyfriend Thomas after work to pick up their child, he was standing by his car acting affectionate and trying to hug Bethany. But as she turned down his affection and started to leave, he reached into her vehicle and tried to unbuckle their son from the car seat. At that moment, Bethany stepped on the gas and got away. But as she realized she wouldn't get far that way, she got her child, left the car, and started running away from Thomas. Thomas managed to catch Bethany, put her in the car, and flee the scene as Bethany was screaming for help. With one hand on the steering wheel and the other holding Bethany by her hair, Thomas drove out to rural Lafayette Parish, telling Bethany that no one is going to find her. Already traumatized, Bethany got even more traumatized when Thomas pulled out a knife and started screaming that he'll kill both her and himself. A few minutes later, Thomas stopped and dragged Bethany out of the car by her hair through woods and a sugarcane field to multiple places as they dodged police surveying the area. By the time they reached an abandoned home, Bethany was barefoot and her clothes were torn. They spent the next 3 days sleeping under a dirty carpet. On the first day, Thomas called his relatives to say goodbye and allowed Bethany to make one call to her sister before he dismantled the phone. Bethany said that while they were there, Thomas didn't speak much, and when he did, he'd say things like, "You should have just loved me. Why didn't you love me?" And when the night came, Thomas made her sleep next to him on a dirty mattress as he held a knife to her throat. One day, she even tried to escape, but Thomas stopped her, and the other day, she tried to attack Thomas with a rod, but that didn't do much damage. To make things even worse, police were near them for all 3 days, looking for them, but they weren't able to find them. But everything took a big, shocking turn on day 3. 4-wheelers approached the abandoned house as Thomas was trying to hide himself and Bethany on the mattress. Bethany's cousin started kicking the door, but at that moment, Thomas stabbed Bethany in the throat. Immediately after seeing them, her cousin started firing shots. He ended up putting 11 bullets in Thomas's body before Bethany was able to free herself and run into her cousin's hands. Thomas bled to death on the floor next to the mattress. Bethany was rapidly taken to Lafayette Hospital and luckily survived. Her cousin Marcus was not prosecuted and walked away from this incident. Number 3. Gary Plausch shoots son's kidnapper. The next case is arguably the most known case in which kidnappers messed with the wrong people. A video of Gary Plosh shooting his son's kidnapper has been circling around the internet for over 3 decades now. It all began back in 1983 when Gary decided to take his son on karate training. His son Jody ended up loving it and continued taking lessons. That's until the next year, when on February 14, 1984, Jody was kidnapped by his instructor, a 25-year-old Jeffrey Doucet. Gary nor his wife knew that their child is getting sexually abused by his instructor every training. But they soon found out when Doucet took Jody to a motel in Anaheim, California, where he continued abusing and molesting him. A nationwide search which lasted 15 days began. On February 29th, Doucet allowed Jody to place a collect call to his mother from the motel. Jody's mom immediately reported this to the police, and just minutes later, California police raided the motel and arrested Doucet without incident. However, that didn't mean the incident was fully avoided. The next day, Jody was returned to his family in Louisiana, and things started to calm down. That's until March 16, 1984, when Doucet was flown back to Louisiana to face trial. He arrived at Baton Rouge Metropolitan Airport and was led in handcuffs by police officers through the airport. But no one had a clue Gary was waiting for him. Wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, Gary pretended he was using a payphone, and as Doucet passed him, he immediately pulled out a gun and shot Doucet in the head. The officers who grabbed hold of Gary recognized him and kept him pinned against the bank of telephones, asking him, "Gary, why? Why, Gary?" Douche fell into a coma and died from the gunshot wound the next day. Gary was charged with second-degree murder and was sentenced to 7 years of suspended sentence, with 5 years of probation and 300 hours of community service, which he completed in 1989. Unfortunately, Gary suffered a stroke in 2011, and he died in 2014 at a nursing home after another stroke at the age of 68. One is sure, Gary was a really great dad. Number 4, Roy Dean Ratliff. On August 1, 2002, two 16-year-old girls, Jacqueline and Tamara Brooks, were kidnapped by Roy Dean Ratliff, who had intention of raping them. In the morning of that Thursday, girls were hanging out in a so-called lover's lane with their dates when Ratliff forced them into a Ford Bronco he previously stole, leaving their dates tied up with duct tape. Girls did not know each other before the 12-hour ordeal began, and on the other side, officers knew they must act quickly because Ratliff was known for a lifetime of crimes, most of them being sexual abuse and rape. It's safe to say that this time, Ratliff had messed with the wrong girls because they were pretty tough. When I say tough, I mean they did 90% of the work. Ratliff took them to a remote desert region where he unfortunately sexually abused them and fell asleep. While he was asleep, the girls decided that one will steal his knife and stab him, while the other one is going to hit him in the face with a glass bottle. And that's exactly what they did. Jacqueline stabbed Ratliff in the throat, and he woke up in shock as Tamara hit him in the face with the bottle. Ratliff then opened the door, and the girls managed to kick him out of the car and even throw a knife at him before locking themselves into the car. While that was happening, an animal control officer saw the kidnappers' stolen Ford Bronco and directed the police towards it. Back in the car, Ratliff pulled out his gun and regained control over the girls. Luckily, 2 officers were already near the car, and when Ratliff saw them, he started pointing his gun at them, but ended up getting shot. He was already wanted on a rape charge and would have faced life in prison if convicted of that crime. So he had nothing to lose and would have killed the girls if officers didn't arrive in time. On top of that, the sheriff even stated that the girls were less than 10 minutes away from being killed. Number 5, James Rail Case. The next kidnapping attempt didn't last longer than a few minutes. In the morning of July 31st of 2022, James Rail tried to force his way into his ex-girlfriend's house. Alison Duckrow and her mother were just coming home after having breakfast in a local restaurant when Alison's ex-boyfriend James pulled up in their driveway in his car. They noticed the car, got into the house, and locked the door. But that didn't stop James from knocking on their door, trying to reach Alison. It had been years since 2 of them saw each other, and Allison had no interest in talking to him. Mostly because the night before James had sent Allison this voice message. Allison's mother told James multiple times that she does not want to talk to him, and at one point, Allison's dad started screaming, "Get off my porch," which he did, but only to come back again less than a minute later. However, this time, he was acting a bit too creepy and violent. While Allison was on the phone with police, James was trying to break into her home. The door started popping open, and James almost made it into the house. But at that point, Allison's dad, Mitchell, who was pushing the door trying to stop James from breaking in, saw the situation was getting heated. So he does what any dad would do. He rushes to the bedroom, grabs his 9mm gun from a bedstand, and tries to shoot James, but only to realize that the clip is stuck and not fully in. Luckily, he manages to unblock the gun and shoots James 3 times. James, being wounded, managed to make a few steps before falling to the ground and bleeding out. In the last few moments of his life, he found out he messed with the wrong house. Mitchell Duckrow faced no charges, and his daughter couldn't be more proud of her father. Number 6. 16-year-old stops attempted kidnapping. Imagine how proud parents of this 16-year-old boy were when they found out he stopped a kidnapping attempt. On March 25th of 2020, Daniel Arroyo Beltran tried to abduct 3 young children from a pregnant mother at a gas station in Las Cruces in New Mexico. Daniel was fighting everyone who tried to get in his way, while the mother hid in the bathroom with her children. However, Daniel managed to get into the gas station, where he tried to force his way into the bathroom. 16-year-old Kanan Bauer, who was at the gas station across the street, got into his car to leave, but that's when he heard screaming and saw a mother running with her kids. Kanan was a wrestling champion, so he knew he could help if someone's life was in danger. Without wasting any time, he quickly got to the gas station where the incident was happening, and when he got there, he saw a man covered in blood holding the door. Kanan immediately knew something was going on, but without hesitating, he gets into the gas station and grabs the attacker who was still trying to force his way into the bathroom from behind. In a matter of seconds, Kanan overcomes the man nobody else was able to stop. When the attacker was finally on the ground, angry people started piling on top of him. But Kanan told them to move away because he's got it. Attacker was still trying to escape, but after a minute passed, he got too tired and realized Kanan was too much for him. The craziest of all was when the old lady grabbed a wet floor sign and started to hit the attacker on the head. A few minutes later, police arrived and quickly put the attacker into handcuffs, thanking Kanan for saving the mother and her children. You may think this case ends happily, but unfortunately it doesn't. 2 years after this incident, the hero of the story, Kanan Bauer, lost his life when his motorcycle collided with a car making a turn. He will forever be remembered as a hero. Number 7. Nicholas Sterneman. How dumb do you really have to be to try kidnapping a child in front of the parents in the middle of day? On February 8th, 2024, a 26-year-old man named Nicholas Sterneman attempted to snatch a young boy at a CVS pharmacy in Miami Beach. The boy's father immediately pulled Nicholas from behind and even got his sweatshirt off. Nicholas then ran away, but was later arrested and charged for kidnapping, battery, and aggravated child abuse. He refused to explain his behavior to the police, but most important is that the 4-year-old boy is still with his family. Number 8. Christopher Higginbotham. It's crazy how some people decide to act dumb, thinking they'll get away with it. On March 22nd, 2024, Adrian Villanueva was with his family, enjoying dinner outside the new deli they just opened while his 8-year-old son was playing on the sidewalk. All of a sudden, a man comes up behind the boy, grabs him and tries to pull him across the street. Adrian quickly starts pulling his son away from the attacker, while the attacker is screaming, "No, he's not your son!" A man that witnessed everything, as well as security guards from the local stores, rushed in to help the boy. A few moments later, and the attacker was laying on the floor, crying and saying how he misses his family. The craziest of all is that the boy's father started sympathizing with the attacker and didn't want to press charges. Attacker was later identified as 38-year-old Christopher Higginbotham, and he pleaded not guilty to attempted kidnapping and false imprisonment charges. We still don't know if he was sentenced or not. Number 9. 11-year-old. On May 18th, 2021, an 11-year-old girl was sitting alone at her bus stop at the intersection, trying to mix blue paint into a homemade slime when a driver of a white SUV suddenly stopped, got out of the car with a knife, and started running towards the girl. He managed to grab the girl by her neck, trying to kidnap her, but the girl decides to fight back and makes both of them fall on the ground. At this moment, the kidnapper decides to abandon the mission. He gets back in his car and drives away. On the other side, the girl runs back home and tells her mum what just happened. Her mum calls the police, and just a few hours later, the attacker was identified as a 32-year-old Jared Stanger. But one detail made the whole investigation so easy that police knew exactly what to look for. While she was fighting back, the girl decided to smear the blue-colored slime all over the attacker's hands. She said she got the idea to do this from a show she often used to watch with her mom. Jared was sentenced to 15 years for attempted kidnapping of a child under 13, aggravated assault, and battery. Once he's done serving those 15 years, he is sentenced to 2 years of community control, followed by 3 years of probation for a charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. What do you think? Did he deserve it? Number 10. Mexican mob kills kidnapper. On March 27, 2024, an 8-year-old girl disappeared from the Mexican tourist city of Taxco. The next day was the eve of Good Friday, and it's a tradition for men to walk through the colonial streets of Taxco wearing hoods, whipping themselves or carrying heavy bundles of thorns in penitence. Bundles were all over the streets that day, but when police found the unalived body of an 8-year-old girl on a road on the outskirts of the city, they watched the footage from security cameras, and one particular bundle got their attention. Security camera footage appeared to show a woman and a man loading a bundle in a taxi, but the way they were doing it was really suspicious because it seemed like there was a body inside the bundle. News in small towns in Mexico spread really quickly, and when people on the streets heard about this, they decided that they're now the law. In the matter of minutes, a huge crowd surrounded the woman's house, threatening to drag her out. All of this happened that same day, but that's not it. Police took the woman into the bed of a police pickup truck, but then stood by, acting intimidated by the crowd, as the crowd started dragging the woman out of the truck and down onto the street, where they began stomping and kicking her until she wasn't moving anymore. After a few minutes of stomping, police picked her up and took her away, leaving the pavement stained with blood. That's how every city should deal with kidnappers. Number 11. Attempted baby kidnapping. On November 9th, 2020, a crazy kidnapping attempt took place at Madison Square Park in New York. Around 3 p.m., an unknown man approached a woman with a kid in a stroller and started pulling on the stroller, screaming that the child was his. People tried to pull him away from the stroller while he was playing a tug-of-war with it, but no one was able to do so until 33-year-old Brian Kemsley approached the scene. Brian was in the park with his girlfriend when this happened, and after he helped to get the attacker away from the stroller, he pulled a well-known jiu-jitsu move called rear naked choke. Attacker fell to the ground with 2 more guys helping Brian to control the attacker. Once they were on the ground, Brian transitioned to a seatbelt grip, and 9 minutes later, police came and arrested the attacker, who was later transported to Bellevue Hospital for a psychological evaluation. Number 12. Off-duty cop kills kidnapper. On May 12th of 2018, a 42-year-old woman named Katia da Silva Sastre was waiting to pick up her children at Colegio Ferreira Master School in Sao Paulo. At one moment, a man unexpectedly walks up to the group of parents and children and points his gun at one of the children. While other parents start running with their children, Katia takes a step back, observes, and quickly pulls out a gun from her purse, firing multiple shots at the attacker. The attacker falls to the ground, screaming for help, but instead of panicking, Katia takes his gun and orders him to lay on his stomach while holding foot on his back. A few minutes later, an ambulance picked up the attacker and took him to hospital, where he was pronounced dead. But what happened to Katia? Well, nothing. It turned out that Katia is actually a military police officer who was off duty when this happened. She didn't have to do it, but she still did. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned what to do if someone ever tries to kidnap you. As always, don't forget to subscribe and click on the screen to watch the next video.